Hello everyone, today we're going to be comparing a $300 studio headphone and a $300 consumer or wireless headphone. The headphones in question are going to be the Sony WH-1000xm4 and the Sennheiser HD650. Both of these are really popular headphones, but for different use cases, and they have different designs and they have different features and stuff, and today we're going to be talking about that. So I'm going to be comparing these headphones on 4 different marks. We're going to talk about the features, the comfort, the sound quality, and the use case. So let's get into it. So first we're going to start by talking about the specifications of these headphones and comparing them together. So when it comes to the weight of these headphones, ironically speaking, both of these headphones are almost the same weight, 255 and 260 grams respectively. Now keep in mind, the HD650 comes with a very hefty, very big cable, while the XM4 comes with a small aux cable. So that's for weight. Another thing that the headphones have in common is that the advertised frequency range is 10 to 40 kilohertz, which is quite nice, but obviously they sound very different, and we're going to get to that in a bit. The design language between these two different headphones is also very, very different. The HD650s has an open back shell, which means that the sound gets leaked outside, and also the sounds outside will leak in, which means that the Sennheiser HD650 is not great if you're going to be sitting in a room with a bunch of other people, because they will be hearing what you're hearing, as well as monitoring and uses like that. While the XM4, on the other hand, is the polar opposite. Not only does it not leak sound outside or get sound from the inside, it is actually noise cancelling, which means that because the headphone is closed back and has microphones as well to reject the sounds outside, this headphone does the exact opposite job of the HD650s when it comes to noise. So that's for noise. And both of these headphones have an MSRP of $300 to $350, depends on the sale. Now the XM4 has gone down to $250 to $200 sometimes, but it launched at about $300, and that's the headphone I have in hand, so we're just gonna go with that. So starting with the build quality of these headphones, going to the Sennheiser HD650, you can see that it's built out of aluminum and plastic. Now the headphone is supposed to have some ear pads up here, but I got this one used, so you're not seeing them, but I will provide a photo of what they're supposed to look like if you buy them brand new. Now obviously the HD650 also came out back in 2003, which is about 21 years ago. The XM4 came out relatively new compared to that. It came out back in... I did not remember that detail. Anyway, so back to the build quality of the HD650. Another thing that you will notice about the build of the HD650 is that the headphone has the cables to be outputted on each side, which is a bit of an inconvenience for me, but what that means is that the cable is no longer hidden in the hinges, and there's one less room for failure when it comes to the hinges. Obviously, the cable can snap, the cable input can snap, but at least not the hinges. Looking at the build quality of the XM4, they're made completely out of plastic, but they feel really, really good. Not only are the headphones very, very flexible, they can also fold, which makes them a lot more portable than obviously the HD650s. Though obviously these headphones have different use cases, so the fact that the HD650 is not portable is perfectly fine. You're not meant to take these outside. Speaking of the build quality, for one last thing when it comes to the HD650, is that because the headphones have an open back design, it makes them slightly more fragile to any kind of humidity, any kind of wetness. If you throw any water in here, you might risk damaging the drivers. And while the Sonys are made completely out of plastic, the plastic is quite thick, it's quite nice, and the engineering on this is just genuinely impressive when it comes to build quality relative to the weight and the materials used. And I think this goes without saying, but neither of these headphones are waterproof. The XM4 at least are a bit water resistant, but they're still not waterproof. Do not get any water spilled near either of these headphones. Moving on to the comfort of these headphones, both of these headphones are extremely comfortable, but they're comfortable in their own different way. See, the HD650 have this really extremely comfortable ear pads, and the ear pads on it are quite big as well, which means your ears are probably not going to touch the drivers inside. Another important bit to mention is that because these headphones are open back, they will let some more air in than the XM4 would. So you can get away with wearing these for many, many, many hours at a time, even in times where the weather is slightly hot like summer. Obviously, these will not let all the air in, but they will let a lot more air in than the XM4 would, and so they're a lot more breathable. Now the Sony XM4 has the advantage, or has a difference, of using basically memory foam ear pads, which is much, much different than the ear pads that the Sennheisers use. Now, which of these you prefer is completely up to you. Now the Sony using leather instead of velour means that while they will be very, very comfortable, and they will help isolate a lot of noise, especially with the active noise cancelling turned on, that also means that these will let you sweat. Unless you're in a very cool and dry place and you don't have a naturally sweaty skin, these will sweat on you. Though honestly, they're still a lot more breathable than some options like JBL headphones, for example, where they kind of border between being open back and also on ear. Those really, really are not breathable, and they will make you sweat. But this is a bit better than that, but they will still make you sweat if if you're a person who's, I guess, like me. So I feel like this says more about me than it does the headphone. And now to the most important bit, what about the sound quality? This is a very, very, very complex bit, but I'll try to explain it as easily as I'm able to. So being that these headphones serve different use cases, they obviously have a very, very different sound. The sound of the HD650 is aimed to be as accurate as possible, such that people can use it for mixing and producing the most neutral and the most realistic sound that they can, so then you can listen to songs that are mixed on it on the XM4. What does any of this mean? Well, what that means is that the HD650 has a very warm but very detailed sound. You should be able to hear every nuances, every instrument, and in great separation. This is part due to the open back design. It naturally creates a bigger soundstage, but also it's the great engineering done at Sennheiser. But all of these things combined lead to a sound that is very wide, very big, for every voice, for every vocal, for every instrument to be separated and placed exactly where it should be in the mix. Now, that's cool and all, but if you're a customer who just watches some movies, listens to some music, and plays some video games, what does this mean for you? Well, what that means for you is that when it comes to music, you should be able to experience something new when it comes to hearing all the instruments in their own way. This should give you the purest sound, or rather the sound that the musician probably intended to give you with these headphones. However, when it comes to watching movies, the benefit of having an open back headphone with great imaging is not always so great. Now, some movies do use Dolby Atmos sound and 3D sounds and whatnot, but this is probably not going to be very, very apparent on these headphones. But what I will say though is having a more neutral sound probably means that you're going to hear more details in people's voices than you will with something like the XM4. But now moving to the sound of the XM4. Now, the Sony XM4 is advertised towards people who sit mostly in public spaces or in transportation or in libraries, and they want to get the most amount of quiet possible. And now with that calm demeanor and very comfortable fit, they also have a very warm sound, which is exactly what you'd expect them to have. Now, warm sound here translates to having a bunch of bass and a bunch of top end, what we call in the world of audio a V shape. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? No, not really. But what it does provide a very consumer sound, a sound that is specifically engineered and tailored to fit most music types, most video games, and most of people's preferences when it comes to audio. Now, what that means when it comes to listening to music is that you're going to get a very warm, a very soft, very smooth sound, but it's not going to be what fits critical listening, which means there might be some details lost in the mix, especially sometimes people's vocals, because the vocals sometimes come within the mids, and the mids on these headphones, while not very recessed, the bass is boosted and the top end is slightly boosted, which means that the mids kind of just don't shine. What I'm trying to say is that this headphone has a very enjoyable, very smooth sound for walks, for library usage, and for listening to music in general. If you don't mind those exaggerated thumps, if you want those hi-hats to be present, if you listen to a lot of rock, some hip-hop, and if you play games where there's a lot of shooting, a lot of gun sounds, and if you're watching movies that just want to sound really special, boomy, and theatrical, you're going to get that experience probably better with the XM4 that you're going to get with the HD650. Adding to that the fact that these headphones are noise cancelling, which means that using them for movies will have a smaller soundstage being how wide the audio feels. On the other hand, you're going to get a slightly more tame but also somewhat more enjoyable sound signature, especially if you're a consumer who cares about the sound being really interesting, having a bunch of bass, and having it clear, because that is a word that I hear a lot of people just say when they don't understand what they're exactly talking about. Now this is a completely random thing, but a website that I like to sometimes only slightly rely on has to be Ratings. Ratings.com or rtings.com is a website that I sometimes use to compare frequency responses, and I'll make a video later about how the frequency response works and how every bit has to do with the sound. But in conclusion, when it comes to the sound quality, this headphone will produce a more theatrical, more consumer-based, more engineered sound for most use cases when it comes to movies, music, games. The sound is not realistic, but the sound is engineered to be most consumer-friendly and also controllable/EQable if you use the Sony app on Android and iOS. On the other hand, the sound of the HD650 is more neutral. It has a bigger sound. It has a more sort of complete sound that is going to be really nice for immersive games and critical listening and whatnot. And a very, very, very important thing that I somehow forgot to mention this whole time is that the Sennheiser headphone has an ohm of 250, which means you cannot directly put this headphone onto your computer and expect a very loud and very good sound. You will need to use an amplifier or some kind of audio interface in order to boost the signal quite a bit, which means that this headphone is even less portable now. Not only does it have a thicker cable, but it also requires some kind of amplification or some kind kind of audio interface, which means it's less portable than ever. And although that's a very expensive price, the benefit of having such great, immaculate, accurate, big imaging sound quality is sometimes worth it, at least for people like myself who do some kind of professional audio work and voiceovers and mixing and stuff like that. So the verdict of this video is that if you want to get something portable, if you want to get something that is used outside the house, if you want something that's not very bulky, something that has a lot of noise cancellation, and something that doesn't leak sound outside, and you're more of a casual consumer who wants some really good audio quality and some good noise cancellation, in which case it is no question you should get the XM4s or the XM5s, but I think that you should get the XM4s per se, because personally I found these being more comfortable than the XM5. Another point that I didn't touch on, and speaking of touch, is that this XM4 headphone is actually touch controlled and wireless, and the battery can survive for about 20 to 30 hours at a time. Given you buy this headphone brand new, if you buy it used, the battery might be more drained. Now, I didn't go too much in depth when it comes to the controls and the features of the wireless bit of this headphone, but the headphone has a power button and a voice assistant / noise cancelling button, and everything else is controlled via touch. But that out of the way, the verdict is that if you want an immersive, beautiful, detailed sound, and you're willing to spare the money and the inconvenience of using a big cable, a very bulky headphone, and an amplifier, then yes, the HD650 is going to give you the most premium, most perfect, most accurate sound between the two of these headphones. But yeah, that'll be it for this review. I know this video was a bit of a longer video. I will include affiliate links in the description. If you happen to decide to buy any of these headphones from those links, I will be forever grateful and it will help me out a fair bit. But if you're still watching, thank you so very much, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And the real winner between these two headphones for me is the HD650, but the real winner is going to be you if you buy any of these headphones, because they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful headphones. I hope that you have a very, very nice day. If there's any more information, I'll probably be providing it in post, either somewhere on the screen or right after this bit. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.